So good morning everyone. So in our last class we were discussing the characteristics of relations. So normally relations will be having four main characteristics, that is ordering of tuples in a relation, ordering of values within a tuple, and values and nulls in tuples. Then the last one, interpretation of a relation. So in our last class we studied the first three characteristics. So ordering of tuples in a relation means, so relation is defined as a set of tuples. So there will be no relative ordering between the tuples. So the relation will not be sensitive to the orders of the tuples. So if we want the result of any query to be in order, then we have to specify the order in the order by clause. So otherwise, so the order will be irrelevant. So ordering of values within a tuple. So within one tuple, the order doesn't matter if we specify the list of attributes or the order in which we are specifying the values for that particular tuple. So values and nulls in tuple. So all the values in SQL is assumed to be atomic, which means it cannot be further divisible. And special values, that is null, will be representing the values of the attributes which are not known or not applicable to particular tuples. So the last one was interpretation of a relation or meaning of a relation. So the relational schema can be represented as a declaration or as a type of assertion. So whenever we define a schema of a student, so we believe that the entity of a student will be having a name, SSN, home phone number, address, office phone number, age, and grade point average. So all those things. So each tuple in this relation can then be interpreted as a fact or a particular instance of a relation. So which means each relation in itself is a type of declaration. So in object oriented programming languages, we define the classes. Using those classes, we then create an instance called as object. So here also each tuple can be interpreted as a type. So just like how we create a class type. So this is the example of a student relation. So having name, SSN numbers, home phone number, if you can observe, the null values are present. Office phone number also we have a null, age and grade point. So null values are present in SQL to represent the three value logics. So relational model notation. So we can mathematically represent the relations. So for that particular purpose, so we'll be using certain notations. So a relational schema R is represented, here schema means table. So a table R of degree n can be represented, degree means the number of attributes, is denoted by R of A1, A2 and AN. So which means these are the n number of attributes that are present in the table R. So in order to uh, represent the relation or a table, we will be using the capital letters like Q, R, S. So they denote the name of the relation. Then in order to represent the relational state means it is a set of tuples that are currently present in the database. So using small q, r and s. So small letters we will use. So and letter T onwards, so we will be using to denote the tuples. So letter small t, u and v. So capital letters for table, small letters for relational states and tuples. So that is the convention which we follow. So constraints on database can generally be divided into three main categories. So constraint means the rules. that we follow for specifying the values for the tuples or the values that we put in a table. So three categories are there. So first category is inherent model based or implicit constraint. So these are the constraints that are inherent in a data model. So if we go for RDBMS, the RDBMS enforces certain set of rules. So that becomes the implicit constraint. So we shall see what implicit constraints means. Schema based constraints, so they are called as explicit constraints. So these are the constraints that are directly expressed in the schema of the data model. So when we create a table and we define some rules, so all those things belongs to schema based or explicit constraints. Application based or semantic constraints or business rules. So these are the higher level constraints, so that depends on the application. So these constraints cannot be directly expressed in the schemas in that of the data model. Hence, they must be expressed and enforced by the application program. So if we are defining an banking application, some of the rules or constraints cannot be defined in a SQL. So all those rules which we cannot define in SQL will be defined in the user interfaces or the intermediate layers of the applications. So those rules becomes the application rules, are also called as business rules. So further in a relational model, so we have four categories of constraints or four types of constraints. So these are all the explicit constraints. So domain constraint, key constraint and constraint on null values, entity integrity constraints, referential integrity constraint. So these are the four constraints on a relational model. So domain constraints. So domain constraints means that for a particular attribute, the value which we supply must be atomic and must be from a domain of A. So domain here is nothing but the data type. So whenever we declare a variable in programming languages, we'll attach a data type to it, and whatever values we supply to that particular variable should be from that particular domain for the data type. So here also for each attribute while creating the table, we will be defining its data type, and the values which we supply should belong to that particular domain. So and hence the domain constraints enforces that the value which we supply for an attribute should be atomic and also from that particular domain. So the data types associated with domains typically include the standard numerical data types for integers, real numbers, and characters for varchar and character data types in the SQL. So key constraints and constraints on null. So whenever we discuss key, there will be different types of keys. So super key, candidate key, and primary key. So four different key types are present. So four types are there. So super key, candidate key, and primary key. So we will try to understand these four terms. So when we first look at them, are when we first define them, so all four of them look similar to us, but there is a difference between those four. So first let us see what is a super key. If it is a subset of attributes SK where any two distinct tuples T1 and T2 in a relational state R of R, we have a constraint that T1 of SK not equal to T2 of SK. So suppose consider two students are there. So when we have two students, they must be distinct. So what are the possible things that can be distinct about a student? So it is the USN that can be distinct, then a mobile can be distinct, then email can be distinct, are there SSN, social security number, just like our Aadhaar. So these things can be different, and remaining things, for example, name, even address, can be same. So it is these four attributes that make the two students distinct from one another. So what we can do is, when we define a super key, so it is a subset of attributes where any two distinct tuples T1 and T2 in a relation state that no students should have a same value for this. So like this. So if I write a T1 of USN, mobile, email and SSN should not be equal to uh, T2 of USN, mobile, email and SSN. So two students should not have the same value. And here in super key, we can define any number of attributes. Suppose if a student is having 10 attributes, all the 10 we can add, so that no students should have a same value for all of them. So such a set, so you can observe here, super key is a set. So it is a set of attributes. Now let us see the key. A key K of a relational schema is a super key of R with an additional property that removing any attribute A from the key leaves the set of attributes K dash that is not the super key of R anymore. So now I told that there are 10 attributes in a student. Okay, out of them, out of 10, 4 are unique. So 4 are unique. So in super key, it is a set. So and we can write uh, all 10 of them. So all 10 attributes can be a super key, because if we take all 10 as a super key, then no two rows should have a same value. But in key, it is also a set. It derives the elements from this set from super key, with the property that if we remove any one of them, then it no longer becomes a super key. So out of this 10, so we'll have USN, mobile, email and then SSN. So if we remove any one of them, then for example, so super key is nothing but we can add any number of attributes to super key, so it doesn't matter. Here the only thing is no two students rows, the entire row should not be same. So that is the condition for a super key. So and all the attributes that are required for our application, so we can add in the super key. And this key derives its value from super key. So here 10 attributes are there. Out of these 10, 4 attributes we are extracting, such that if we remove any one of them, then the two rows will not be indistinguishable. So this we call it as a, if we remove any one of them, then the meaning, the real world meaning of a student will be lost. So because if we remove this SSN, we can enter duplicate values for a student SSN. so which will not be possible in an application. Then comes the candidate key. So a relational schema may have more than one key. In this case, each of the key is called as a candidate key. Now this candidate key concepts derives from key. Now here see, four attributes are there. Each four of them is called as a candidate key. So candidate keys are those attributes so which can uniquely identify a tuple. So we can uniquely identify a student based on the USN, mobile, email or SSN, because these things cannot appear more than once. So each such attributes is called as a candidate key. So here USN is a candidate key, mobile number is a candidate key, email is a candidate key, and SSN is a candidate key. This is individual, so it is not a set. Okay, so sometimes two attributes may include, but here it is individual. Then primary key is derived from candidate key. So this is the candidate key whose value is used to identify tuples in the relation. So primary key of a relational schema are underlined. So out of the candidate key, the designer of the database will select or designate one of the candidate key as a primary key, which they will be using in their application across the relations. So in our student database, we can use mobile number also as a primary key. But the thing is, we will not be storing mobile number in all the relations. In admission, we will be using the USN to combine the data together, because that is the generic one that is used to identify a student based on the USN, not on the mobile number or email ID or SSN. So it is a USN in our application that we will be using in every table. So depending on our database and application, we will designate one of the candidate key as a primary key. So in our example, it is USN. So that becomes the primary key. So these are the four differences between the super key, candidate key and primary key. So super key is a set. So it is a set of attributes. So here we can include unique attributes, non-unique attributes, everything we can include. But the only thing is the two tuples should be distinguishable. That's it. In a key, so all those non-unique things are removed. All the non-unique attributes which we have in a student, so they are removed, and whatever is left, that is called as a key. So candidate key means, so each one of them which are unique to in a relation, so that becomes candidate key. And out of the candidate key, one is designated as primary key. So that attribute will have a special name, so that is primary key. So relational databases and schema. So relational database schema, a relational database schema, yes, is a set of relations, yes. So a schema, yes, is defined as a set of relation or set of tables. So schema is always set of tables and a set of integrity constraints. So integrity constraints is nothing but the primary key constraint. Relational database state. So relational database state of a schema, yes, is the set of relational state. So each table will have its state. So if we include the state of all the tables or all the relations, then it becomes the state of the database. So a database state that does not obey all the integrity constraint is called as an invalid state, and the state that satisfies all the constraints in integrity constraints, then it is called as a valid state. So here we define valid state and invalid state. So in the commercial DBMS packages, they will not accept the data that is invalid. So entity integrity constraints. So constraint means again a rule. Entity integrity. So this constraint states that no primary key can be null. So that is the first rule. So primary key value cannot be null. This is because primary key value is used to identify an individual tuple uniquely in a relation. Having null values for primary key implies that we cannot identify some of the tuples. So if USN of some student is null, then it indicates that we have no means to identify that particular student. So if two students USN is null, then there will be no possibility to identify or distinguish between them. So the entity integrity constraint says that primary key value cannot be null and it should be unique. So no two tuples should have a same value for primary keys. So there is a difference between unique key and primary key. So primary key cannot be null, but whereas in unique key, a value can be null. So the next type of constraint is the referential integrity constraint. So referential integrity constraint is specified between two tables and it is used to maintain the consistency among the tuples in the two tables. So informally, we can define referential integrity constraints as that a tuple in one relation refers to another relation must refer to an existing tuple in that relation. So if I write two tables, that is student and admission. So in the admission table also I will specify the USN. So whatever USN value we represent in admission table should be present in the student table. So I cannot specify a USN which is not there in the student table. So that violates some of the application rules. So in order to have such kind of rules implied in the database, so we define a referential integrity constraint. So it is also called as a foreign key. So whatever values for USN we supply in the admission table or mark score table should be present in the student table. So that way of enforcing a rule is called as referential integrity constraint. So and it is applied between two relations or two tables. So based on that referential integrity constraint, we have the concept of foreign key. So a condition for a foreign key specify the referential integrity constraint between the two relation R1 and R2. So foreign key, it is a set of attributes in a relation R1 that references to the relation R2 and it should satisfy two conditions. First condition is the attributes in foreign key should have a same domain as the primary key of R2. So for example, here let us consider the same. So that is student table. So in the student table, we will be having USN and all other attributes. So in admission table also we will be having USN and other. So this particular USN of admission table will be referring to the USN of the student table. So what are the rules? So this USN, whatever we specify as a foreign key, should be, first thing is it should be primary key in student table. So that is the first rule. So that is what the first rule says. The USN should be primary key in student table. And the value of a foreign key in a tuple T1 of a current state either occurs as a value of primary key of some tuple T2 in R2 or is null. In the former case, we have the T1 of foreign key is equal to T2 of primary key. So which means again, the second condition is based on the value. So whatever value we supply over here for the USN should be present in this particular table. And secondly, the data type of these two should be same. So same domain indicates it is a data type. So the data type of USN in both student table and the admission table should be same. So the first rule says it should be from the same domain, and the second rule says it should be, the value should be present in the referenced table. So this is about the foreign key. Data type should be same and the value should be present. So then there are three operations. So update operations and dealing with constraint violation. So the operation of relational model can be categorized into retrieval operations and update operations. So the three basic operations which we can perform is insert, delete, and modify. So we have already discussed these. So insert operation. So here we will provide a list of values to the tuple and they will be inserted into this. So while insertion, there can be four types of constraint violations. So what are those? So all the four constraints which we discussed, that is the entity integrity, domain constraint, referential integrity. So although there is a possibility that we can violate all of them. So if you violate, then the database softwares will not allow us to insert. So we cannot supply null value for the primary key. So we cannot insert the value for a foreign key which is not present in the base table, or we cannot supply um, the integer type for a where a character is expected. So the domain violation. So all those things we can violate in insert. If we violate, that particular tuple will not be inserted. So in the delete operation, so delete operation is used to delete the tuples. So while deletion, um, some of the constraints will not be violated. So whereas entity integrity doesn't apply to deletion operation, but referential integrity, there may be a violation. That is, we are deleting a row from the base table which is being referred by the another table. So in that case, the rules get violated. So these are the examples of deletion. So only in case of foreign key, so we can have a violation in delete operation. So if we are violating a foreign key, then the deletion will not be done in the databases. So then whenever we are updating values in the databases, again, it is possible that we violate all the four kinds of constraints. So if we are modifying the primary key value and that value is already present in some tuple, then obviously violation will happen. So the errors will be thrown. So all the domain constraint, then the integrity constraints, referential and integrity, both. So unique constraints. So all those things, there is a possibility of violation in update operations. So next comes the concept of transaction. So transaction. So a symbol would be transferring money from one account to another account. So we transfer uh, the money in our maybe Phone Pay or Google Pay from one person to another person. So when we transfer the money, what happens is the money gets deducted from our account and it gets credited into the second person's account. So reducing the money from our account and increasing the balance in other account. So it's a two-step process. So this two-step process together called as one transaction. So it's a database application program running against a relational database. It runs a series of transactions. So a transaction involves reading from the database as well as doing the insert, delete and update operations to an existing database. So these transaction must leave the database in a valid state. A single transaction may involve any number of retrieval operations that reads from the database and any number of update operations. So before transferring the money, what happens? I should have the sufficient balance. So first my balance will be read. If I am transferring 1,000 rupee, then first in my account, whether I have 1,000 rupees or not. So that will be checked. So that is the read operation from the database. So once that condition is met, then what happens? The money gets deducted from my account. So that is the one update operation. And the money gets added to the second person to whom I am transferring. So that is another update operation. So this transaction involved three steps. So reading my balance, then deducting my balance, and adding or increasing the balance of the second person. So these three operations together, it becomes one transaction. So a transaction can be defined as a series of operations on a database. So, and the transaction must leave the database in a consistent state. So consistent state means the set of operations that are predefined in a transaction must be complete. So for example, money gets deducted from my account, but it is not transferred or gets credited to the second person. Then it will leave the transaction in an inconsistent state. So after some time, what happens in the application, the transaction gets reversed. So you might have experienced this. So the money gets deducted from your account but not credited to the second person. So in that case, the database becomes inconsistent because the transaction is not complete. So all the incompleted transactions can be rolled back. So that is what happens. So the money will come back to my account. So a large number of commercial applications running against the relational database is the online transaction processing. So they will be executing transactions at several millions of transactions per second. So this is the concept of transaction. So transaction is nothing but a series of database of predefined database operations. So we can stop here for today's class. So we can enter your attendance in the chat. So from next class, so we will start the relational algebra. So whatever queries we have written till now, for the same thing, how mathematically it is represented. So the mathematical representation of the queries, so we call them as relational algebra for that particular purpose. So we will be using the relational algebraic notations. So we shall discuss that in our next class.